All right, here we are on a Wednesday night. No time like the present. I know we're a couple minutes after 8:30, but it happens every now and then. We run a little bit late on our start time. Looks like we have a good internet connection. That's always a winning combo. We got the video rolling. We got the microphone working. I always like it when things work. I always try to get started at 8:30. I always try to start right on the dot. But it doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes we get delayed by a few minutes, and it's not usually for any good reason. I'm usually just like scribbling down notes. You know, I've got my trusty legal pad here where I'm just scribbling down notes so I have some reference things so I don't have to sit here and, wait, how many recruits did they have visiting the first weekend? Let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. So I don't have to bother with that. I have it all written down right here on my trusty legal pad. This is the Panther-Lair Show, of course. I'm Chris Peak from Panther-Lair.com. It's Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. The most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet. Football, basketball, recruiting. You find it all at Panther-Lair.com. And of course, we have message boards where you can interact and talk with other Pitt fans about everything going on in the world of Pitt sports. Ooh. That's rough. I don't know if there's much conversation going on the message boards about the Lacrosse Women's World Championship, but there's like a playing game or an early tournament game going on right now between Team Canada and the United States. Team Canada has Pitt's lacrosse coach, Emily Bossino, is playing for that team. I'm supporting Team Lacrosse Canada, and it's not going well because Team US is up 15-10 with like a minute and a half to go. And I don't know much about lacrosse, but I feel like if you are losing 15-10 you're with a minute and a half to go, with less than 90 seconds, you're probably not in great shape. But trying to show a little support here with the Team Canada lacrosse because you gotta help out. But so there's probably not a lot of conversation right now on the message boards about women's world lacrosse championships right now, but there's a lot of conversation on the message boards about a lot of other Pitt topics. Certainly recruiting, the football side and the basketball side are both going pretty good right now, or at least there's been a lot of action and activity so far this summer, and it makes it easy to do a show like this when there's always something going on. And to be honest, and I think people have noticed this before, but we'll point it out from time to time, sometimes a lot of what we do on this show, when I do the weekly show, or when I used to do the radio show on Saturday mornings, or even when I write the 321 column on Fridays, so much of it is drawn from discussions and conversations that are happening on the message board. I don't come up with all the ideas myself. I'll be reading a topic on the message board or a conversation on the message board, and I'll think, that's actually pretty interesting. And I'll get in on the conversation on the board, but then I'll think, you know what? I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about that on the Wednesday night show. I'm going to write about it in the 321 column on Friday. I'm going to talk about it here or talk about it there. And it's nice. I mean, I feel like it's like a continuation. You know what I mean? It feeds off of the board. We sort of distill all the interesting conversations and topics on the message boards down to the show here on Wednesday night. And so I feel like this show on Wednesday nights is kind of a companion piece to the message boards and the content that we put out on Panther-Lair.com. I don't think if you listen to the show, I don't think there's anything, information-wise, you wouldn't already be privy to by reading the articles we write and reading the things we post on the message boards. Maybe a little more opinions here. You get that. But as far as information goes, that's all going to be right there. And then, on the site. And then this show sort of stands as kind of a complement to all of that. Like I say, a companion piece. So I'm glad you could come along with us here tonight. People filing into the chat room and the discussion. Appreciate everybody who's already posting comments. I'm going to get to those pretty quick. I got a couple things. I noticed a comment right here. Pittsburgh Sports All the Time says, believe it or not, Chris, I'm watching the game right now as you are talking. I'm going to have to root against Emily for the first time in my life. So it's we're talking about the Women's World Lacrosse Championship. It's 16-11. USA is winning, probably over by now. Canada scored it. Yeah, that's the end of it. Canada loses to the U.S. 16-11. Again, that's interesting or notable for us because Pitt's women's lacrosse coach Emily Bossino is on Team Canada, and so you root for root for that. Keep an eye on that. Anyway, we got a lot of comments and questions already coming in on the chat screen. I kind of want to get to those. I know a lot of times I kind of talk for a while before we jump into the conversation part of the show, and I don't want to spend too much time on that tonight. I like the conversation. I like when we get the back and forth going, but there are a couple things I want to cover before we get into that. And I mean, we're sitting here, it's June 29th. I mean, June, just like that, is over. And this month seems like it flew by. I mean, I always get, I always go back and forth when I say something like that. Boy, it feels like it flew by. Now, on one hand, it does. On one hand, I can't believe June is already over. On the other hand, June 1st feels like a long time ago. June 1st was a Wednesday, I think, right? So June 1st was a Wednesday. The next day, June 2nd, was the first official visit weekend of the year. The first official visit weekend of June. They had 14 kids come in that weekend. And that seems like a really long time ago, right? When like Kenny Minchie and Kenny Johnson and Isaiah Neal took their official visits. I mean, that seems like a long time ago. And at the same time, I can't believe it's over. There have been 4 prospect camps since then, 3 official visit weekends since then. How many commitments? 15 commitments, 16 commitments since then. 36 recruits took official visits to Pitt since then. So a ton has happened in the last 4 weeks. And at the same time, it seems like it's gone by. I can't believe it's over. But we're here at the end of the month, so I figured we could take a little bit of, kind of recap the month, just kind of go over where everything stands, sort of set the table as you head into the summer with Pitt coming out of their June recruiting. And, I think some of the June recruiting is going to bleed into July. I think there are recruiting things that happen in June that will continue into July, maybe come to fruition in July, commitments that might get announced in July. And that's the first thing I'll talk about, actually. I'm just going to start right there because Pitt has 17 commitments on the board right now. They have 17 recruits who have committed. Technically, 18 recruits have committed, but Shelton Lewis decommitted. So right now, there's 17 commitments. If you saw the Pitt coaching staff's board, they would list 17 names. Because 17 times Pat Narduzzi has sent out the tweet that says Pitt is it. But of course, if you look at the commitment list on Rivals.com, there are only 14 names. Because 3 of those guys who committed have not made their announcements public yet. And I don't know what's going on this year. I don't know why this seems to be happening so much more this year. Because at one point, there were 4, I think, unannounced commitments. And true sort of silent commitments. And, that term gets thrown around, silent verbal, silent commitment. It's effectively what they are right now. But I think even in that case, you don't have the head coach tweeting out that they got a commitment, right? Because there's 2 ends of this thing. There's 2 parts of the two steps, right? The first step, the recruit tells the coach that he's going to commit, and the coach tweets it out. Tweets out something that gives it away. And, most of these coaches, if not all these coaches, have their own little commitment indicator thing. I don't think Jeff Capel does. Kevin Stallings did. Maybe Jeff Capel did early on, but I don't know if he does anymore. I think Kevin Stallings did. Didn't he? New to the zoo or something like that. Pat Narduzzi obviously has his Pitt is it tweet. We see James Franklin all the time. James Franklin, we are better or whatever it was. There's a lot of these sort of indicator tweets. And that's step 1. And that tells the whole world, hey, Pitt just got a new commitment. And then step 2 is the recruit announcing it. Now, there's a middle ground in there where we get information on who it is or who it may be. We narrow things down. We eliminate certain candidates. We highlight certain guys as the most likely or probable. And we'll put that on the message boards to give you an idea of whatever information we may have to try and keep you up to date. But it's really a matter of time. It's the time between the coach tweet and the recruit tweet, or the coach tweet and the recruit announcement, whether it's on Instagram or Twitter or just telling somebody, hey, I did it, put it out there. And there have been delays, particularly in the last couple years. I think you see a delay of maybe a couple hours, maybe even into the next day. And it's usually those delays are based on the recruit waiting for his edit. And his graphic. You know what I mean? That the school is going to make him a really cool graphic that says committed with a cool photo of him in a jersey and all this stuff. I mean, you've seen these things. I don't need to explain to you what I'm talking about. But it's usually, that's what the delay is. He's waiting for his edit. And I can't tell you the number of times I've said, hey, when are you going to announce? And the recruit says, I'm just waiting on my edit. Or I say to a source, hey, do you know when this guy's going to announce? What's your expectation? I don't know. He's got to get his edit. Edits. So this is what we're waiting for. The last couple of years, this is what we would wait. We would wait a few hours, sometimes into the next day. We would wait for the edit. But now, this summer, and I don't know if this is happening at other schools around the country, but it's definitely happened at Pitt, on multiple occasions, 4 that I can think of. And, who knows, how long it's going to stretch out. But commitments, and then this long delay. The most recent one, Jesse Anderson, committed on Sunday, the defensive back from Florida, committed at the end of his official visit on Sunday, and didn't announce it until Tuesday. And that seems short by comparison, because there's still 2 guys from last weekend, not this past weekend, but last weekend's official visits, who committed on their visits, and they have not announced. And we just sit back and you say, what are we waiting on here? What is the problem? You know what I mean? What's the delay? What's the hang up? You're not waiting this long for an edit. You're not waiting this long for a video. And it's frustrating. It gets kind of old. You almost wish Pat Narduzzi wouldn't send out his commitment tweet. And he sent one out on Monday night this week. And I think that one should get revealed later in the week. But who knows? The 2 from last weekend, I have no idea. Pretty sure we know who they are. Doesn't make a lot of sense of anything that's happened in the last week and a half. And so, in some cases you can start to get concerned about those commitments. Say, wait, are those kids wavering? Are they not going to announce for Pitt? In some cases you just say, what's going on? And if you were really going to wait this long, why not just not, I don't want to say not commit, but why not hold off on the Pat Narduzzi tweet? Because it's getting old just waiting. You know what I mean? And I mean, we have plenty of things to write about. We have plenty of things to cover. We got plenty of content at Panther-Lair.com. It's not like we're desperate for a commitment story. But I like to just get everything caught up. I like to be, caught up on everything so we can sort of move forward. You don't have any hanging chads out there. You know what I mean? You don't have anything sort of dangling, unsettled. That was like a 2000 reference. Anybody around in 2000 to get the hanging chad reference? I'm sure I've got older listeners on here who got that one. Just the dangling, unsettled things. Just get it done. Be done with it. Come on, let's move on. You've got your edit. Announce. And let's keep moving. But anyway, 17 commitments so far for Pitt. 3 of them have not announced. 14 have. 18 total commitments have come in. Really, 16 have come in this month because they came into the month with Kenny Minchie and Zion Fowler already committed. 16 recruits since then have said they want to go to Pitt. One of those, Shelton Lewis, decommitted. And, that happened Sunday, I think it was. So in between, last week's show and this week's show. And to be honest, not too much teeth gnashing to be had over that. And that's not because Shelton Lewis isn't a good player. That's not what I'm saying at all. I think he's a very good player. I think Pitt would like to have him. I think he was one of the top DBs on their board. Kid out of Georgia. You want to get those kind of kids. But he made it clear from the time he committed to Pitt that he intended to take more official visits. He was going to go to Boston College, and he went to North Carolina. And so you kind of saw it coming a little bit. You kind of anticipated that he would probably be moving on at some point. But even on a broader scale, in a more general sense, that some of the guys that commit in June are going to end up not signing. It's just the nature of the beast. And it was kind of the case years ago, but really in the last 4 years, since they started taking official visits in June, you get these huge commitment rushes, and then you kind of know you're going to lose a couple. You're going to have a couple guys who fall off. And it's happened every year. There was Travis Kuntz and, Kadri Jackson and Brandon Mack, T. Denson, Henry Parrish. You can go down the list. I forget last year, but I'm sure there were some guys. And now Shelton Lewis is on that list. You don't necessarily expect it to happen quite as quickly as it did with Shelton Lewis. You don't necessarily expect it to be, 3 weeks later. I mean, he didn't even make it to the end of the month. He committed on the first official visit weekend, so he committed on like June 3rd or June 4th or something. But he didn't even make it till the 30th. He didn't even make it to the 25th or 29th. So you don't expect it to go that soon, but it's going to happen. And I kind of said on the weekend recap show, it's sort of like it's anticipated attrition. And I think you recruit knowing that some of the commitments you get in June aren't going to stick. And you might not be able to predict which guys it is. You may not be able to predict which position it is. But you're not going to hold on to all of them. So they got 18 commitments. They were positioned to come out of June with 18 commitments. They're coming out with 17. They've already experienced that attrition, which I think was going to happen either way. So it's a loss in terms of Shelton Lewis being a really good defensive back prospect and somebody that the Pitt staff was really high on. It stings a little less, I think, because it was anticipated and it's not too much of a surprise. The timing maybe a little bit, but overall not too much of a surprise. Now, Pitt still has 3 defensive backs committed: Shadarian Harrison, Bryce Pollock, and Jesse Anderson. And I'll tell you, and I said this on Twitter, you could do a lot worse than building your secondary out of kids from Florida and Georgia. I don't want to paint with a broad brush and say every defensive back prospect from Florida and Georgia is a stud, but like, you go into those states, you're going to find a lot of really long athletes who can play the position. I feel like, look, Florida and Georgia are loaded at all positions. That's always going to be the case. I think Georgia has really ascended to being one of the stronger states, and it's not even all that overlooked anymore. It was overlooked, I think, for a while, but it's becoming more and more readily apparent that Georgia is a major talent-producing state, and you're going to find good players there at all positions. But I feel like, Florida and Georgia, your receivers and your defensive backs, you're going to find some studs. And you're going to find the kinds of guys who we may not rate that highly because they just look like exceptional athletes. And because they're playing in Florida and Georgia where there's so many exceptional athletes, they maybe don't stand out. They maybe don't stand out quite as much because there's just great athletes all over the place. But they're still great athletes. And, if Pitt ends up 2 years from now, 3 years from now, with a secondary that's entirely made up of players from Florida and Georgia, I'm guessing that'll be a pretty good secondary. I like these guys a lot, Harrison, Pollock, and Anderson. I think they're all, like I say, long athletes. They're fast. They can move. They can play corner or safety. Shelton Lewis was the same kind of guy. I think we all rightfully give this staff the benefit of the doubt when it comes to defensive back recruiting. But you look at these guys, and it's not. You don't have to stretch too far to figure out why they recruited these guys. They fit really well with what these defensive coaches want the secondary to be. And so, I think it's a really good defensive back class. It would be better with Shelton Lewis, but it's still really good as it is. Real quick on the numbers before we get to the comments and questions then. 17 total commitments, 1 quarterback, 1 running back, 2 receivers, 3 offensive linemen, 1 defensive end, 1 defensive tackle, 2 linebackers, and the aforementioned 3 defensive backs. I think they want another wide receiver. I think they want at least 1, if not 2 more offensive linemen. I think they will take at least 1 more defensive lineman and or tackle. I think they want and will get another linebacker. And I think they're willing to take another defensive back if the right guy wants to commit. Jeremiah Anglin, again, another long Florida athlete, took his official visit this past weekend. They would love to land him. I think he would fit perfectly. So that's where the class stands right now. Those are some of the needs that I think they have. I think they could take another running back. Like I say, I think a 3rd receiver, a 4th and a 5th offensive lineman, another defensive lineman, and a 3rd linebacker, and maybe a 4th or a 5th defensive back. That's how this class gets filled out. 17 commitments now. I could see them adding another 6 guys, a couple of which would come over the summer, and then the rest they would fill in through the fall and in December. Good class so far. I think a very successful June for Pat Narduzzi. I think they accomplished what they wanted to accomplish. There are a few guys who got away, but then a few guys that they landed that I don't know if I thought they would land. So you kind of balance that out, I think, pretty well. All right, let's get into comments and questions because everyone's waiting patiently, and I appreciate that. I can close the window with Canada and the United States in the Women's World Lacrosse Championship. Didn't work out for Team Canada, but, USA, right? All right, let's jump in here. If you want to get your comment and question read, make sure you can be a super chatter. Donate a couple bucks to the podcast. We appreciate that. And we'll make sure we get your comment and your question read, because there's a lot of there's a lot of comments and questions in the chat, and sometimes we don't get to everybody. So if you want to make sure we get to yours, you can do that. Oh, and before I start that, I got to mention, I didn't say it at the top here, like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I ask those two things all the time. I'm becoming one of those guys who talks about that all the time. Like and subscribe, like and subscribe. But you know what? I see it on, my kids watch these YouTube videos all the time of like Minecraft building and stuff like that. And these guys are always like and subscribe, like and subscribe. And I'm like, oh, that's so annoying. Why do they talk about it? And then they have like 400,000 followers on Twitter. And I'm like, okay, I either need to learn how to build Minecraft better, or I need to start asking for followers on Twitter, or not 400,000 followers on Twitter, 400,000 subscribers on YouTube. And I'm like, I either need to get better at Minecraft, which I am still very not good at, or I need to start asking for subscribers on YouTube like all those guys do. So, subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. We do this show every Wednesday night at 8:30. We got, Monday morning we release the weekend recap, where we go over everything that happened over the weekend to get you up to speed on everything you need to know for the week. And then on Friday we release a new conversation interview, a video interview with someone, a Pitt player, coach, recruit. We've had them all. So far, we've had a bunch of Pitt basketball players. We had Jason Capel. We had Isaiah Neal, the defensive tackle recruit. We put all those things on our YouTube channel. It's like 3 times a week. We have new content on YouTube, and you don't want to miss it. I think it's all quality content. And so, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and then you'll never miss any of that stuff. So like this video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thank you. I appreciate it. And I'm going to keep trying to get better at Minecraft and see if I can find a second career there. All right, Coaster King says, I saw Tim Salem liked a tweet from a wide receiver who recently decommitted from Vanderbilt. Was he the mystery visitor? I don't think so, but I'm not entirely sure. So, mystery visitor, and Brock Madonic said, heard you were breaking the news tonight on the show on who was the mystery recruit that visited last weekend. Just joking. So there were 10 official visitors on campus this past weekend. Number 10 is a recruit who's committed to another school. We don't have 100% confirmation on who it is. By all indications of what we can gather, that recruit has gone to great lengths to keep his visit secret. And so we just kind of are rolling with it and keeping an eye out and trying to work different angles and see what we can figure out. Got nothing more than I can offer than that. Brock Madonic says, how are Pitt's chances going forward with Hakeem Williams and Phillip Daniels? Yeah, so Hakeem Williams, 5-star wide receiver, number 3 wide receiver prospect in the country, number 16 overall recruit in the class of 2023. He's a 5-star recruit, all right? He's the number 3 receiver in the country. The number 16 recruit number 3 receiver in the country, number 16 recruit in the class regardless of position, okay? So picture that. All the kids in the country. He's number 16, and he's a 5-star. And he's only number 5 in the state of Florida. Like, you talk about how good the talent is in the state of Florida. He's number 5. He's the 16th best overall recruit in the country. And in his own state, there are 4 guys that are, ranked higher than him. It's sick. It is so sick down there. I can't believe how many. They just studs. It's just studs. But Hakeem Williams visited Pitt over the weekend. I've talked a lot about this. I talked about it on the weekend recap. I've written about it on the message boards. Look, I think Pitt's in great shape. I really do think Pitt's in great shape. I think Pitt is a top 2 option right now for Hakeem Williams. I think nationally, the perception is that it's Georgia and Texas A&M. I think the reality is it's Georgia and Pitt. I really do. I think he's got a really strong connection with Taekwon Underwood. I think that was step 1. He's been to campus now for an unofficial visit and an official visit. I think his relationship has grown with Charlie Partridge. I think it's grown with Pat Narduzzi. I think his family likes Pittsburgh a lot. I think his family likes Pitt a lot. I think his family likes the coaching staff a lot. they have a lot going in their favor right now. Pitt has a whole lot going for it when it comes to recruiting the number 16 overall prospect in the country. But it's going to be a battle. It's going to be really tough. Georgia is not going to walk away. They also want the number 3 receiver in the country. You know, everybody wants this kid. But Pitt did everything it could. And I think I think by all indications, by everything I've heard, and I've talked to a lot of different people on a lot of different sides of this, I don't think the Pitt official visit could have gone better than it did. I mean, you guys were here. The weather was perfect all weekend. But I think with his experiences in Pittsburgh, his experiences on campus, and just around the program and the players and the coaches, I think it went as well as it could have. You know, an A+ visit, 10 out of 10 visit. But he's a 5-star recruit. And he's got some of the biggest programs in the country after him. And that means a lot of things. And number one, what all those things rolled together mean that it's going to be a real battle. And it's going to be a battle for whoever gets him. It's going to be a battle for whoever wants to get him. Because, you know, whether you want a commitment from Hakeem Williams right now or you get a commitment from Hakeem Williams right now, you are going to have to battle all the way to the end. It's not going to be easy. And he could commit to Pitt tomorrow. He could commit to Georgia tomorrow. He could commit to Texas A&M tomorrow. And it's going to be a battle until the middle of December on signing day. He could wait until the day before signing day, or he could wait till the morning of signing day. And it's going to be a battle all the way through signing day. And if Pitt is going to have any chance to win, they are going to have to work like crazy. You know what I mean? It's going to be a lot of work to make it happen. I'm not ruling him out, though. And I think after this weekend, they significantly helped their chances. They really did. So, chances with Hakeem Williams, I mean, I still can't sit here and say that Pitt's the favorite. I can't predict Pitt will get him. That's a bridge too far for me. But I can say that they did everything they could over the weekend. You know what I mean? They did everything they could over the official visit weekend. And then Brock Madani says, how are Pitt's chances going forward with Hakeem Williams and Phillip Daniels? So Phillip Daniels is an offensive line prospect. He visited 2 weeks ago. You know, he's still on the board. I think he announced that he's going to make his commitment on July 2nd. I think Pitt's got a really good shot there. I think they have a really good shot of potentially landing him. I mean, we'll see what he ends up announcing on, I guess it's Saturday, right? Is July 2nd Saturday? Yeah. So we'll see what he ends up announcing. But I think they have a really good shot, which would be, you know, if you add Phillip Daniels as an offensive lineman to go with Ryan Coretta and Colin Van Roy and Ty Ray, the other offensive lineman they've gotten so far, this is a pretty decent class. They missed out on a guy today, Jordan Church from IMG Academy. He committed to Louisville. I thought they would have a good chance with him after hosting him for an official visit over the weekend, but that didn't work out. He had been long rumored to be leaning toward Louisville, and he ended up sticking with that and committing to them here on Wednesday afternoon. And so that one stung because I think they really wanted to get him, but if they could land Phillip Daniels to go with, like I say, Coretta and Van Roy and Ty Ray, then, you know, I think it's a pretty decent O-line class. I think it's a pretty solid O-line class with the possibility to still add maybe another guy or two. Maybe not 2, but to add at least 1 more and get up to 5 offensive linemen. Get up to 5 offensive linemen in the class. I think would be a pretty good group. All right, we had a super chatter. Snoozy says, I've seen that Pitt basketball has been offering some players. What do you know about some of these players and thoughts on Pitt basketball recruiting? Let's see. They've offered a bunch of guys recently, kind of working on that 2024 recruiting class, and even trying to fill in some pieces on the 2023 recruiting class. I think they'll try and get a bigger recruiting class for 2023. I could see them trying to get a lot of guys to come in. They've got a lot of veterans and seniors on the current roster. Those spots will all come open for next year, so I could see them trying to get a big recruiting class. So we'll kind of see what pans out there. But, to Pitt's recruiting in general, I honestly, and I've been thinking about this a lot, like I don't think Jeff Capel's done that poor of a job recruiting. I think when you look at all the different aspects of coaching and running a program and trying to win at the college, high major college basketball level, recruiting is I don't want to say it's the least of my concerns when it comes to Jeff Capel, but it's pretty far down the list. You know what I mean? Like, he's done a decent job recruiting over the years, I think, in my opinion. The trouble has been getting those guys to then play together. The trouble has been getting those guys to buy in and commit to their roles and fill their roles and do what they're supposed to do on the court. And that was an issue in season 1, and it was an issue in season 4. It's been an issue every year for Jeff Capel. Putting together the team hasn't been the biggest problem. Getting that team to execute and play together has been. And so, even you look at coming into this season, I think this looks like a pretty good roster. I think there's a lot of pieces I like. I don't know if they address the power forward position well enough, but I think they've got some plans there on how they're going to address it with the players they have on the roster. I think it would have been ideal to find a good quality 4 in the transfer portal, and they weren't able to do that. I don't think, depends on how you view Blake Hinson, but he's probably going to be the guy who's playing there. But I like how this team's put together overall. Obviously, John Hughley is a big part of it, but you bring in Nellie Cummings as a point guard to go with Jamarius Burton, and you get Dior Johnson coming in as the recruit. It was a great ad. I think the Diaz-Graham twins have a chance to surprise people a little bit. Nike Sabandi coming back. There's talent in this group, and I think it's a group that has a chance, if they play cohesively, to really kind of come together and win some games. The question is whether or not Jeff Capel can keep them together. That's the biggest challenge for him, is keeping the team together, getting everyone to commit to the team, and getting everyone to commit to doing what's best for the team, because that was the problem, or a problem. There have been multiple problems, but that was a problem over the last 4 years. Is not everyone was committed to the team goals ahead of the individual goals. And some of that's on a lot of that's on the players. A lot of that's on the players who couldn't set their own personal goals aside for the good of the team, who couldn't realize that if the team succeeds, they themselves individually will reap the rewards of that success. The players take the bulk of that criticism, but they don't take it all. And Jeff Capel gets a whole lot of it. And Jeff Capel deserves a whole lot of it. And the biggest challenge for Jeff Capel this year is getting Nellie Cummings and Jamarius Burton and Dior Johnson and Nike Sabandi to play together. It's getting John Hughley to... Well, he just needs John Hughley to keep just growing. It's getting the guys around John Hughley to make a few shots from deep so that they create a little space for Hughley to work down low. But for all those things to kind of happen, everybody needs to understand their role. Every player needs to understand what he's supposed to do on the court and how he fits in and helps the team best. And if that doesn't happen, they're going to struggle again. But if it does happen, if it does work, if those guys do get it and they play like it, they can win some games this year. I think he's constructed a good team that can win some games. Can win more than they lose. And if you win more than you lose and you play in the ACC, you're going to have a pretty good shot at making the NIT. They should be a team that should make the NIT. They should be able to accomplish that. And potentially maybe even have themselves in the bubble conversation for the big dance at some point. But they should be able to win more than they lose. It's just a matter of whether they'll do what they need to do. If they'll commit to playing for the team and not for themselves. And like I say, that's on the players. And that's on Capel too. So I don't really have a problem with Jeff Capel's recruiting. I think Jeff Capel's recruiting has been fine. I think it's, there have been high points and low points, but I think he did a good job this offseason. He's just got to coach these guys. Pittsburgh Sports All the Time says, all right, this is about the only question I have for the night with almost 2 months to go to kick off. How do you feel about this football team? And, of course, how do you feel about the 2023 schedule? How do I feel about this football team? I'll say it now. I've said it before, and I'll certainly say it again. I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say it a ton this summer, okay? This team will go as far as Keaton Slovis takes them. Period. Point blank. End of sentence. End of statement. End of sentiment. The team will go as far as Kedon Slovis takes them. And if he plays poorly, they will struggle. They will go 8-5. If he plays well, they'll win more than that, with the chance to win a lot more than that. I believe it. All the pieces are in place here. All the pieces are in place. The defense, all the pieces are in place. Defensive line is stout. Linebacker has some youth and some inexperience, but a whole lot of potential and talent at those spots. Secondary is stout. Offensive line, we know about. They brought everybody back. Running backs, we know about. They brought everybody back. Tight end, you've got a freshman All-American coming back. Wide receiver, you lost the Biletnikoff Award winner. That's nothing to sneeze at. They've got very good wide receivers. Good enough wide receivers. The only X factor, the only wild card, the only thing that could that can make or break this season is the quarterback. And that's not stupid football logic. That's always the case. Football, the quarterback, it's always going to come down to the quarterback. This team has the other pieces in place because they have the pieces that they had in place last year. And the difference last year, for as great as Jordan Addison was, the difference was Kenny Pickett. The difference between 2020 and 2021, the difference between 2019 and 2021, the difference between 2018 and 2021 is Kenny beeping Pickett. That's it. That is the difference. It's his play, his performance, what he did last year led the team to 11 wins and an ACC championship and a New Year's Six Bowl. Period. Point blank. And if they want to get back there again, the quarterback has to do it. I mean, that's it. And we can talk about all the different other factors. We can talk about Jordan Addison. We can talk about re-emphasizing the running game. We can talk about Frank Signetti. We can talk about changing wide receiver coaches. We can talk about losing outside linebackers. We can talk about transfers. You can talk about all the things you want. And guess what, brother? We got to get all the way through July. I'm going to talk about all those things too. We're going to break down all these positions one by one. We're going to do all this. It's still going to come down to this. Shortest podcast ever. I'm going to sit down one night. I'm going to say, welcome to the Panther-Lair Show. It's all about Kedon Slovis. And I'm going to get up. I'm going to walk out. And that's it. Because that's what it comes down to. Okay? This defense will be just like other Pat Narduzzi defenses. They're going to get a bunch of sacks. They're going to make a bunch of explosive plays, and they're going to give up a bunch of explosive plays. It's just going to happen. That's what they do. This offense is going to be able to run the ball. This offense has receivers who can catch the ball. This offense should be able to give the quarterback time. Can the quarterback make the plays? It's the X factor. It truly, truly is. And that's what it comes down to. And it's Kedon Slovis. And if he doesn't get it done, then it's like, 7-5 regular season, chance to win the bowl game to get to 8-5. Or 8-4 regular season, chance to win the bowl game to get to 9-4 or fall to 8-5. That's what they'll be. This should be a baseline 8-win program in the regular season. Baseline every year. That should be the minimum expectation. And then how far you get above that depends on the quarterback. And after last season, after seeing what Pitt did last season with a sort of typically Pat Narduzzi Pitt team, after seeing what they did last season, I became more convinced of it than ever. It's really just the quarterback. And so what do I think about this football team this season? I think it's about the quarterback. I think Kedon Slovis has to be the man, and I think he can be the man. And if he does, they'll be really, really good. How do I feel about the 2023 schedule? So looking ahead to next season already, and I guess we haven't really talked about this much, but the ACC announced they're doing away with divisions after this 2022 season. No more Coastal, no more Atlantic. It's going to be one single division. Pitt will face, every team is going to play a schedule that has 3 permanent annual opponents, and then you rotate the other 10 teams, 5 each year. So you're going to see your 3 annual opponents every year, and then the other 10 teams, you'll see them all twice every 4 years with 1 home game and 1 road game. So, this is nice. I mean, like, just a brief sidetrack on this. I think this is good. The cream is still going to have the opportunity to rise to the top. There have been very few instances since the league expanded in 2013 where a format like this would not have just produced the same results that the 2-division format produced anyway. But by which I mean that the 2 teams that won their divisions had the best records in the conference regardless. So I don't think it changes that much competitively. What it does is it gives you opportunity to see more teams more frequently in more venues. Pitt is going to host Wake Forest in 2025. That'll be the first time Pitt has hosted Wake Forest since the Panthers joined the conference. In 2026, Pitt will go to NC State. It's the first time Pitt has played at NC State since joining the conference in 2013. 14 years without playing at NC State. 13 years without hosting Wake Forest. These are teams in the same conference. That doesn't make any sense. It shouldn't go that long. And they were on track to kind of, resolve that. 2020 schedule got screwed up, and they were set to host Wake and go to NC State before, as in 23 and 24 as the cycle ended. But I appreciate divisions. I appreciate seeing the same 6 teams every year. Same 7 teams every year, your 6 division teams and your 1 permanent crossover. I appreciate that. It builds storylines. It builds a little bit of animosity, helps build rivalries. It's fun to see players develop. Oh, that guy. We saw that guy. We've seen him, for the last 3 years. Oh, he's back. He's still there. He's been there since 1992 and all these jokes. It's fun, but I also like playing different teams. I like going to different venues. I like seeing different atmospheres. And that hasn't been an option in the ACC. Really, since the league expanded in 2013. So the 2023 schedule, first year with this new format, Pitt will get Boston College, Florida State, Louisville, and North Carolina at home. Duke, Syracuse, Virginia Tech, and Wake Forest on the road. The 3 permanent annual opponents for Pitt, Boston College, Syracuse, and Virginia Tech, so old school Big East there. And then in the non-conference, Pitt will host Cincinnati, go to West Virginia, go to Notre Dame, and then has 1 more open slot to fill in for the 2023 season, probably going to be an FCS opponent. Should be an FCS opponent since Pitt is currently slated to play 11 Power 5 opponents that year, with Cincinnati moving to the Big 12. That's going to be a real tough year. I mean, that's, going to West Virginia, going to Notre Dame, those are tough places to play, hosting Cincinnati. And then, the conference schedule is what the conference schedule is. You get Florida State at home. I guess that'd be the marquee home game. North Carolina, that's always a pain in the butt. Duke, Syracuse, Virginia Tech, Wake Forest on the road. Those should be games that Pitt should be able to win. But that's like 2 years down the road. Really, it's hard to know what they're going to be, what Pitt is going to be, what those opponents are going to be. So I can't project that too far. I'm just thinking about this season. General So's Chicken. Is anybody else disappointed that the ACC got rid of divisions? For me, it kind of takes a lot of the fun out of it. As a fan, we had something to play for every year. We got smashed when they did this. Well, so Pitt won the Coastal Division, right, and made the ACC championship game twice. But both years, they went 7-1 this past year, and they went 6-2. In 2018, both years they would have made the ACC championship game. They would have been one of the top 2 teams in the conference, and they would have gone to Charlotte. So I don't really buy that, it's going to hurt teams or it's just going to set up Clemson and Florida State every year. Maybe it'll be Clemson and Florida State every year if they win their games and earn it. Everybody's going to have an opportunity to win their games and earn it. I like some of the long-standing rivalries. Like I said, I like seeing the same teams. There's part of seeing the same teams every year that I like because I think it builds up some animosity. I mean, like, the Jeff Collins, Pat Narduzzi post-game handshake in 2020 was especially funny because you knew they were going to see each other again in 2021. Whatever animosity existed between Pat Narduzzi and Justin Fuente it was every year. You know what I mean? It kept coming up every year because they faced each other every year. But who has animosity toward Duke? Syracuse, it never really. Although, you know what? I'll say this about a couple of these. Virginia never really turned in anything, I don't think, as far as animosity goes. I think Virginia Tech as an annual opponent was a lot of fun. Syracuse, even though Syracuse beat Pitt in 2017. They beat Pitt in 2012, although that was pre-ACC. But Syracuse, I think there was some real dislike there. Those games always seem to get kind of physical. I don't want to say they were always cheap shots, but I feel like both teams just hit a little harder in those games. They seem to dislike each other. I don't know if that stems from or traces back to Pat Narduzzi and Dino Babers. I don't think so. But those teams definitely seem to have a little something extra. Even though nobody really wants or believes or cares about the Pitt-Syracuse rivalry, even though they've been playing each other since the dawn of time, there was something extra in those games. Miami, I don't think Miami cared about anybody else in the Coastal. And I'm not sure that anybody else in the Coastal cared about Miami, to be honest. Miami thought they were better than the rest of the Coastal. They only won it like once since the expansion. So, and that was the year that they lost to Pitt in the season finale. The regular season finale. So Miami thinks they're better than everybody else, but they haven't been. And it kind of makes everybody else just be like, we don't really care about you. We want to beat you because you're kind of annoying. The North Carolina games every year certainly were fun. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt about that. That created some good animosity and ongoing narratives. You know what I mean? The narrative of Pitt has never beaten North Carolina since joining the ACC, I mean, that was a real storyline up until 2019, right? So you have, 5 years, 6 years, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 6 years of Pitt losing to North Carolina in increasingly frustrating ways until they finally got over the top in 2019. But that was a great storyline year to year that you're not going to have, at least not with North Carolina. Now, maybe you develop something with the annual permanent, crossovers now of Boston College and Syracuse and Virginia Tech. I think Virginia Tech has a possibility to be like that. But, like I said, Syracuse, there's some animosity. I'm not sure anybody really cares when it comes to Boston College, although Pitt has lost its last two games against Boston College in 19 and 20. But I'm not really... I don't know. I will miss that. I will miss the year-to-year animosity. Daily Siren Testing says 2024 quarterbacks looking really interesting. Thoughts? Yeah, it is looking interesting. There's a couple guys, Jakari Williams from Georgia and Trevor Jackson from Florida. Both were on campus this month. Jakari Williams had an offer and came up for an unofficial visit, spent a day at Pitt. Trevor Jackson didn't have an offer, came up and worked out at Pitt's prospect camp and earned an offer that day. And, those two guys are pretty high on Pitt's board. And I could see the Pitt coaching staff pushing to try to get one of those two. I think if the Pitt coaches could get one of those two, they would be pretty happy to land those guys in in the 2024 recruiting class. I think they would be pretty stoked about that. That would be a good land. Either one of those guys. They're athletic quarterbacks, but they're good drop back passing athletic quarterbacks. Jackson, they might get ahead on because he really kind of worked behind a senior last year. But I saw him at Pitt's prospect camp. He was really impressive. I can see why they offered him. And Williams is a dual threat guy who likes to get under center and drop back and throw. So I think good options there, particularly if you can get one of those two guys to follow, Kenny Minchie in the 2023 class. Might be starting to build up a little bit of depth and a little bit of talent at the quarterback position. OOF McGee says, do you think Arch Manning or any other elite quarterbacks will sign transfer to Pitt like Bryce Young if Hakeem Williams commits? No, I can't. Can't say that I can't say that I see that happening. I guess just to answer your question. I mean, I think if you can get a 5-star recruit like Hakeem Williams, yeah, you're going to be in good shape. You know what I mean? That's going to help you. It's going to raise your profile. It's going to draw extra attention. It's going to get other recruits looking at you and thinking about you. But I don't think you're going to flip an elite quarterback. Not in this class. If you go out and have success, if you get a Hakeem Williams, all right, here's what it is. If you go 11-3 in 2021, if you have a big 22 season, win 10, 11, 12 games again, you follow that up, you get Hakeem Williams, so you got a 5-star recruit, you go out and win a bunch of games in 23, then yeah, class of 2024, class of 2025, you should be able to reel in some studs because now you've done it over the course of several seasons. You're getting big-time recruits, and those guys are contributing. But if he commits tomorrow, are they going to get Arch Manning on Friday? No, probably not. Let's see here. Steele Broderick says, with the new ACC schedule change, what is the must-visit away game? Best atmosphere and best city things to do on the visit. So let me think. I've gone to ACC games. I've gone to Pitt games at Boston College. I'm going to work through the conference. Boston College, Syracuse, Virginia Tech. I've gone to a game at Louisville, but that was before there was an ACC game, but still. Wake Forest, North Carolina, Duke, Miami. I've not gone to Florida State. I've not gone to Clemson. And I've not gone to NC State. I didn't go to Florida State in 2020 because I wasn't traveling anywhere in 2020. I didn't go to Clemson in 2016 or 2020. 2016, I just stayed home from road games, did some different things, tried to do some different things with our game coverage. So I changed the approach that year. And then the other Clemson game, like I said, was 2020, and I wasn't traveling anywhere that year. Out of the places I've been, if I had to say my favorite places to visit, I like Georgia Tech a lot. I just like Atlanta. I really like the city of Atlanta. I like how easy it is to get around. I just like being in Atlanta. I think there's a lot of good things to do, a lot of good places to be, a lot of good, foods, everything. I mean, it's a good place. Louisville, when I went there, when Pitt was in the Big East with Louisville, that was a lot of fun. Always had a good time on those road trips. I really like Louisville. Miami's cool. It's not as cool as you think it's going to be, but it's still pretty cool. So I dig that. Otherwise, Virginia is nice. Virginia's a really nice drive there. Virginia is a pretty cool stadium, but I can't say there's a whole lot to do in Charlottesville. I don't think I even stayed in Charlottesville the times I've been down there. I think I stayed in Beckley, West Virginia or someplace and just drove a couple hours from there to get to Charlottesville or something like that. So I don't know. I mean, you want to go to Clemson, you want to go to Florida State because those are the most notable, biggest, I don't want to say biggest programs, most well-known programs and atmospheres in the ACC. So those are two that you want to go to. Virginia Tech is cool when it's full. When it's not full, it's not all that special, I don't think. But, having been there a handful of times. Boston College, I was only there in 2014. Don't really remember much about that. Syracuse, so here's the thing about Syracuse, all right? It sucks driving there. It sucks being in Syracuse. It sucks walking into that building. Kind of sucks being in the building. But the game itself, there's something about being at that dome game. And maybe this is largely from my perspective with the press box is open air. It's open and it's lower. It's closer to the field level than most press boxes. And so I think that those two factors, the open air being lower, combined with the fact that it's in a dome, I feel like I can really hear the hits more. You know what I mean? I can hear them. I can feel them. It's way more than at Heinz Field or some of these other stadiums where you're way up high behind glass. You don't hear smacks. You know what I mean? Whereas at Syracuse, you do. When J.P. Holtz laid out, was it Anthony Smith? I could feel that. You know what I mean? I could feel that. And I think I've talked to other people who've gone to games there as spectators and fans, and they say the same thing. It's a different kind of experience being in the dome. And again, the drive there is terrible. Being in Syracuse is terrible. I've never seen the sun in Syracuse. And I don't exaggerate. I've been there a lot of times. I've been there in 2008, 10, 12, 13, 15, 17. 2019. So I've been there 7 times. 7 times I've been in that dome. And I've never seen the sun in Syracuse. I've never seen the sun in that city. There's really nothing good about it, but it is a unique game experience to be in the dome. So it's worth checking out at least once after my ringing endorsement there. All right, I got to get through some more of these because we are running. We just have a couple minutes here. Doug Woods says, any surprise that Pitt didn't get an annual matchup in Georgia or Florida? Also, one of the 2 teams, Boston College, that got all old Big East teams. So I forget what I predicted. I had a prediction on what Pitt's matchups were going to be. I thought it would be like Syracuse, Virginia Tech, and Miami or something like that, or Syracuse, Virginia Tech, and North Carolina or something like that. I'm not surprised that they ended up doing it this way. I don't think it was easy for the ACC to put these things together. I think there were probably a lot of interested parties involved in trying to, set these matchups and set these permanent crossover opponents and all these kinds of things. And I think that was probably difficult to do, to try and manage it all. They kept all of the permanent crossover opponents except for I want to say Wake Forest and Virginia Tech might have been permanent crossover opponents from the division system. And they did not keep those. But all the other, annual rivalry or crossover games, Florida State, Miami, Pitt, Syracuse, Georgia Tech, and Clemson, all of those, I think, stayed in place. As far as I could tell. But I don't know. I'm not too surprised that they just gave Pitt the old Big East teams. I was hoping for something a little more inventive than that, or a little more interesting than that, but that's what they did. All right, I see that a few comments from earlier in the show when there was my dog was barking, so I apologize that you could hear that. He was upstairs. I didn't think you could hear it. It's not a Chihuahua. It's a little terrier, but he's a barking little terrier. All right, last one. Brock Madonic says, any belief that Hakeem Williams could be a silent commit? No, I don't think so. I just don't think so. I think he's going to keep that recruitment open for a little while. I don't think he's going to silently commit. I genuinely think Hakeem Williams and his family admire, respect, and care about the Pitt coaches. That they wouldn't tell them we're going to come and leave open the window for possibly not doing it. You know what I mean? I just don't. It's just everything I've gathered, everything I've heard, everything I've read, everything I've been told. I would be surprised if that was the case. I just don't think that's. I don't think that's going to be it. All right, let's see. We got a lot of questions in there. I apologize we didn't have time to get to everybody on that. Remember, you can always be a super chatter and make sure your comments and questions get read in case we run out of time and don't get to it. A lot of people have a lot of comments and questions, but we're right up at that, coming up to the hour mark where we like to cut it off. So save your comments and questions for next week. If you didn't get it answered, you can jump in there early and start posting them next week once the stream goes live. You can always be a super chatter, throw a couple bucks to the podcast to support us, and we appreciate that for sure. You can also, if you don't want to be a super chatter, you don't want to, give us a couple bucks, which I can understand. You want to, you can always support the podcast and support this video stream we do, the shows we do, by liking the video and subscribing to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. If you don't get a chance to watch the show while it's live, you can only do the super chat function during the live show. If you don't get a chance to watch the show on a Wednesday night, 8:30 to 9:30, you watch it later in the week, that's cool. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. You know what I mean? Like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel, just like all those videos that my kids watch on YouTube all the time. Thanks everybody for jumping in on the live stream tonight. It's been a lot of fun chatting this evening. We had a good time, and June is over. We're now heading into July. We'll keep up on all the recruiting info here on the weekly Panther-Lair Show. We'll also start doing some of our position breakdowns and getting you ready for the upcoming season. You may think the season's a long ways away, but this Friday is July 1st, which means 2 months to September 1st. So It's coming fast. So thanks again to everybody on the live chat tonight. Thanks everybody who watched the video or listened to the podcast later in the week. We appreciate it. Stay tuned to Panther-Lair.com, Panther-Lair.com. Have a great rest of the week. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week.